Good evening, I'm Laura Lee.
And I'm Dan Wolf. Thanks for joining us. Some staff members at a Duluth nonprofit are expressing concerns over the group's leadership.
That after stopping all operations Thursday following a walkout. Northern News Now's Madison Green joins us live in studio to tell us more about what those staff members are wanting for the future and what could happen to the kids if this happens.
Dan, Laura, Neighborhood Youth Services was founded 29 years ago, providing kids in Duluth's Central Hillside neighborhood with meals, recreational opportunities, and other services. They operated within another nonprofit for years until it went bankrupt. 2 years ago, the Family Freedom Center, a different nonprofit, absorbed NYS, becoming its new operating agency. According to NYS staff, this is when all the problems began. They no longer want to continue to operate under the Family Freedom Center umbrella. Today, NYS staff met with the Family Freedom Center's leaders and board to discuss the problems they are having. Aaron Jolino, Senior Youth Specialist for NYS, said there are only two outcomes that would result in their resumed operations. Either the board releases the current Executive Director of Family Freedom Center, Jacob Bell, whose father founded the center, or they relinquish control of NYS, allowing them to become their own nonprofit organization. Jolino said it is not the employees who will suffer the most, but the children and the families that they serve.
But to have an operator that'll take us on that really cares about the kids in this community, the families in this community, and neighborhood youth services. To have somebody come in and try to run it as a business to make money, that's not why we're here. We're here to help kids and the families.
NYS helps between 60 and 80 kids a day. The board did not make a decision today and asked for more time. The Family Freedom Center empowers and cultivates the Black community by holding events, offering courses, and other services. In a statement, Bell said he and the board heard all of the staff's concerns and will take it under consideration as they discuss next steps.